Coming up in this video, spiritual ethics, part of our mediumship development training. This is a warm-up video for our video on Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, where we're going to go deeper on dealing with grief and loss as a medium. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about anger when it comes to grief.
If you are just getting to know us, I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From ZenRoseGarden.com.
All right, Zen heads, it is time to tag up.
So for all our Zen heads in Zen Ed Academy, let us know you're here with the hashtag Zen Head for Life.
Boom. And if you're watching live, give us a hashtag live tribe.
And if you're watching on the replay, give us a hashtag replay fam. I'm really happy to see that you're taking advantage of our free resources, because even there, we've got a shit ton of information because we just like talking. We like to make a lot of information available, even if you don't join us on our platform, just because we like to teach.
We're continuing today with the third video on grief and mediums and how they get it messed up.
So today we're talking about that second stage of grief. Yep. The last video we talked about denial and shock. Today we're talking about the second stage of grief. And that happens in stages. Like the anger doesn't just show up. Here's the anger stage. Now we're done. No. It doesn't work that way. So it happens in stages once the shock and denial begins to kind of wear off.
Right. First you're shocked. You're like, what just happened? I can't believe it. And then you're like, oh, hell no.
I think really for the stages of grief, the only kind of clear processes are that initial shock and denial, because that's sort of
the starting phase.
And it kind of dissipates. It's sort of like more clear cut. And then the acceptance when you finally are done.
All right.
You know what I mean? But everything in between is a free for all. So
we want to know if you have ever lost a parent, and today we're going to kind of use parent as the as the primary example. So if you've ever lost a parent, once that shock wore off, how did your anger manifest?
Was it like direct anger at the parent for leaving, or was it more of an indirect anger, like old sibling rivalries got rekindled? So it shows up in different ways. And if you don't have a parent that you lost, think about that in maybe a brother, sister,
any person that you've lost. We're just using parent as an example.
Just want to kind of get the brain juices going as far as like, how did that anger manifest for you? Because a lot of people, when the grief process hits, they don't recognize that they're in anger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anger looks different for each person in the grief process. And it might look different than how you may express anger in your normal life, right? But it is very important to be able to process it instead of just like stuff it down and not get angry, because that anger has to be felt. It's got to get out. It's much better that it gets out than you keep it inside.
Yeah, it's really funny. I think that most of the time when you lose a loved one, that anger shows up in a different way than your normal anger. So that, I think, is one of the main reasons it's hard to recognize and hard to process. So anger can show up a couple of different ways for the griever. Right. Actually, more than two, but we're going to give you two sort of primary examples.
Right. And we're going to approach this with losing a parent as an example, with these two different angles, but fill in the blanks with any person that you have ever lost physically. Okay. So the first one is if the parent passed and maybe was abusive. So you have an abusive parent, or maybe there was a bad relationship there. This one is pretty obvious, right? There's going to be anger, and it's super obvious, as well as anger about things that you might have been missing from childhood. Okay. Or from that relationship.
And that one's kind of, like I said, that's the
fairly obvious,
easy spot. But as a medium or a healer in this situation, it's really important to listen to the client's energy when they are in this stage, right? Because anger is going to show up in different ways during any kind of a healing arts session. It can be tricky, and you want to be gentle.
You do not want to force a resolution that may not be ready to happen, nor do you want to push them accidentally into some kind of a deeper anger that they may not be ready or able to emotionally handle at this point in time.
So there's no handbook of every situation that you might encounter. So as a general rule, when you're working with a client in this anger stage of grief, you have to really be neutral and follow the energy, because you can deliver the same message that you're getting, the same message with slightly different energy, and get different results.
Right.
And that the reason neutrality is so important is because we sympathize as healers and intuitives and sensitives and empaths, and all you people know who you are out there. We sympathize it, and can sometimes our stuff can leak out into the process,
right?
And we can overlay it in a way that's not very helpful for the client. So we want to use our time privately to process our stuff and not put it in the mix.
Right. And this is also why self-growth and your own working on your own shit is important, and being neutral and being able to listen to the client's energy, let the client guide you in the delivery of whatever the message is or the energy or whatever it is, instead of you trying to overlay or bring them out of or push them into a process that they may not be ready for.
So all things to consider. I mean, these are things you learn as you go. We all make stupid mistakes in our first couple of years as healing arts professionals, and you get better at it. So if you are a healing medium, for instance, your client needs to feel the anger in a very supported way. Right. So this is like for intuitive healing arts professionals, not necessarily message mediums.
So a healthy way that leads to release and relief. Okay. That may include maybe a conversation with a loved one in a guided meditation that helps to clear the air, or maybe helps to get the anger at them out so that you can get to a resolution. If that is in your skill set, again, know your scope, know your skill set. If you are capable of this, if this is in your wheelhouse, then use it. If it's not, you don't have to go there.
So that is in the skill set of many healing hands-on healing practitioners. So that's something very nice. So the second scenario is that the sitter or the client had a great relationship with the parent. This one's trickier, and there's no obvious reason, obvious big letters, to be angry directly with the parent. You just lost them. The last thing you want to do is be angry with them, right? Because you love them. Great relationship.
So here, the anger is going to be a lot more subtle. Okay, this anger looks different. The anger here might be just simply that the parent left. They've left me here in this physical world. They're no longer here.
Oh, you're sad. This is hard to reconcile because the leaving part is usually not intentional by the person that left, right? Usually not.
And there was love there, right? So this can be very difficult to access any of that anger directly at the parent. And maybe that's not what they need.
So the only way to access anger here, often, not always, sometimes the person's willing to get angry directly at the parent, like, why did you leave me? Sometimes not. It just depends. Often it is a very simple way. For instance, they may only be able to be angry at the fact that the loved one is gone, but not at the parent directly.
Right. Okay? So whatever the avenue, it needs to be felt and supported in the way that the client is ready for, right? And we can all improve our listening skills. So listening to the energy, listening to the client, listening to the emotions. And if that's not in your skill set yet, you may want to explore building that particular skill set so that if this does come up, and if you're in mediumship, it's going to, so that you can help people through this part of the process. And Medium Star says, I worked hospice for 7 years, so I definitely have had my experience working with death and all that goes with that, as well as how the family deals with it. Yeah, that's another very important part, is how the family deals with the death. But mainly with, in this scenario, you're not necessarily dealing with the entire family. You're dealing usually with the one client.
And that's, you don't have to be a full-on qualified, certified grief counselor to deal with when you have a client come in for like a message mediumship or a healing situation. It's just good to know where they are in their process.
And understanding the process itself so that you can tell where they are in the process.
Right. So you're, kind of white gloving the situation. So like we said, keeping a finger on the pulse of where the client is at in the anger stage can help you stay neutral in your delivery of the messages or your healing process.
And if you know the roadmap, like we just said, you won't be taken by surprise by some of these intense emotions. And this is one of the reasons that we're doing this series on grief, so that you at least know a little bit of the roadmap.
This was kind of sparked by a question by one of our students in Zen Ed Academy about, how mediums will give clients things like, you're holding your loved one here because of your
the
grief.
Reason.
You're the reason they're stuck. So a lot of things
that's horrible. Don't do that.
Yeah. So if you are a message medium, guidance and messages from spirit can be really different in different stages. In the anger stage, loved ones may deliver messages of resolution or reconciliation to help the anger process move more easily, right? And this is why you have to trust.
Right. You can't know the family history of every single client that walks through your door, right? So you have to know the roadmap and follow the energy in a very loving, compassionate way, holding space for this client to do whatever they need to do at this area of their processing.
So this is why we say it's good to understand some grief counseling techniques for the medium, which we're going to be dropping on you in our special Thursday Live. I think that's tomorrow.
And that's where we're going to be getting more into the dealing with grief and loss as a medium like a pro. You definitely want to be there for that one. We're going to drop it like it's hot.
The reason I like doing this is because this series is because when you're doing your craft, which is your intuitive arts, your mediumship messaging, your Reiki, whatever it is that's your skill set, you're fully tapped in, you're tuned into spirit, you're giving them what they need to get. But sometimes you might need to step back and call on some of your grief counseling to help them get over a certain hump. And that's okay.
Just hold space.
Holding space. But there's a way to hold space, right?
Right. And sometimes all a person needs is the freedom to just let go in whatever fashion they need to, without any judgment, without any attachment, and just let go.
And I think one of the reasons we're doing this is because sometimes as mediums and intuitive arts professionals, we want to fill in that gap in between the messages and the stuff that we're doing.
But you can get a little too involved in their process.
Right. So if we know, like, to kind of hold space in that gap between messages, does that make sense? To understand that process is happening in the middle of your session. Yeah. So
the more educated you become on the process itself, the better you can help people through their process.
We'll be back to chop it up with our hashtag YouTube fam faster than 2 shakes of a unicorn's tail after he's cooked rainbow frosting on your carpet.
Not very pretty and super hard to get out. So if you like this video, hit that like button.
And if you have any insider stuff you want to know, let us know in the comments. We do love to hear your stories and tell you all our personal stories.
Yeah, and for more live hangouts, behind the scenes secrets, and mind hacking pro tips,
be sure to subscribe
and click that bell, click it, to turn notifications on,
so you're the first to know
when we drop a new video
or go live.
We know that time is a valuable and precious resource, and the fact that you guys have chosen to spend that with us, we absolutely honor and appreciate that. But most importantly, leveling up your skills, taking your life and your business to a whole new level, we absolutely honor and appreciate that even more. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.